All right. Let me just get my computer set up here. All right. If you can see the slides, if you could just let me know. It should say how to create changes in your clinic without generating conflict. So if you can just type in the chat box that you can see that, that would be great. All right. So hello everybody. It's Dr. Young, Dr. Heike Young, your team building and leadership coach. And as always, it's a pleasure to bring you these weekly Thursday tidbits. I'm assuming that you can hear me because nobody's screaming at me in the chat box. And I'm assuming that you can that you can see the slide. So let's get started. This week's Thursday tidbit is part 3 out of 6. How to create changes in your clinic without generating conflict, attracting bad attitudes, or feeling disrespected. Today we'll talk about taking action. So just to summarize what we've talked about until now, we've talked about the setup and the delivery. In the setup, the most important thing to remember was to have clarity. Know in your own head what you want to change, why you want to change it, how this change will affect everybody, what their part in the change is, when you want to implement it, and so on. Just be as clear as you can possibly be in your head. And remember that your goal is to be so clear that you can answer any questions confidently and avoid any unfulfilled expectations from your team. In the delivery, the most important aspect that we talked about was the invitation. How will you tell your team about the changes that you want them to listen to and to be a part of? Also remember to make sure they know what's in it for them. And keep your different personalities types in mind there, because that's really important. It's always important. It's always something that I talk about. So now we're ready to actually take action today. And one thing to remember, and I always tell this to my clients, change is like making potato soup. Everybody has their own version, but you only need to worry about your version of the potato soup that you want to make, that you want to create. So how will you implement your change? How will you make potato soup? So there are 3 steps to remember. Number 1, what will you do? What will they do? And what not to do. So if you look at the little picture, you will be the one with the book, probably. Somebody else will have the task of stirring the soup, and somebody else will be tasting the soup. And one of the things not to do is to stick that spoon after you taste it back into the soup pot. So, what will you do? Here are your fundamental responsibilities, and write these down, maybe on a sticky note, and post them on your desk or your wall. So you're responsible for creating guidelines around the changes you want to implement. You are responsible for creating a list of tasks for your employees to do. You are responsible for providing the tools they need to be successful in implementing your changes. And you're also responsible for providing support for them. So if you look at the picture, if you think about, creating the soup, the potato soup, the guideline is that, on the menu today, we'll be offering potato soup. That's all we're going to be offering today. That's your guideline. Your tasks Mary, you're going to be washing, peeling, and cutting up the potatoes. Stephen, you're going to be responsible for cooking the potato soup. And I don't know, Susan, you're going to be responsible for cleanup. You also need to provide them with the tools. If you don't have pots and knives and spoons and utensils, all the stuff that you need to make potato soup, that wouldn't be fair to them. They couldn't follow through with creating wonderful potato soup. They can't follow through on creating the changes that you want to create. You are responsible for being their support. So if they have questions, like for instance, the one person to the left is asking, they have a question, it's your responsibility to provide answers for your team. Then what is their responsibility? What will they have to do? They need to follow your lead. They need to know and understand what's expected of them. They need to follow your guidelines. At the same time, you don't want them to be robots. So they need to think on their feet also. And that's one of your responsibilities, is to create that in your team. They need to perform their tasks, and they need to be able to ask you questions. If they just go through life and they don't think that they're allowed to ask questions, or they don't want to ask questions, that's something that needs to be addressed, because questions are hugely important in creating change, because change is ever evolving. It's not, the potato soup that we create tomorrow is not going to be the exact same potato soup that will create the next day, because the ingredients will always change, how they taste, where they come from. There's always a little bit of a difference in them. And questions are almost like the spice in the potato soup. They're really, really important. So when people ask you questions, don't take that as a personal insult. Don't try to push the questions away. Really listen to the questions and use it as feedback. So that also means that you need to be available to answer their questions, and that goes back to your responsibility to provide support for them. So let's talk about what not to do. Also, if you could write these down, that'd be really great, because these are hugely important. Don't be unorganized. Don't micromanage, don't get frustrated, and don't do it yourself. So don't be unorganized. That goes back to your setup. Be clear on what you want to change and why and how and when and so on. If you feel unorganized, go back to the setup, because chances are you're not clear enough yet. Probably not clear enough in your own head about it. Don't micromanage your team. If you do, I guarantee it's because you're not clear enough in your setup. Also, if there's somebody else in your clinic, maybe the owner who micromanages, or somebody else in your clinic micromanages, it's because they're not clear in their own head what their responsibilities are and what their, meaning your team's or other people's responsibilities are. Don't get frustrated. If you do, retreat into your office or your car and think about why you're getting frustrated. What's causing your frustration? If it's always one person, there's something about that person that needs to be addressed. If it's always a specific situation, there's something about the situation that needs to be addressed. So what didn't you do in the setup that now has you frustrated? And then don't do it yourself. If you catch yourself doing things yourself over and over, and you're staying late because, oh my God, I would rather do it than get somebody else to do it because I don't know how to do it and I could do it better, that just means you weren't clear in relaying your message. So your setup wasn't clear enough and your delivery wasn't clear enough. And you need to go back and fix those holes. Word of wisdom here. We all do these things that we're not supposed to do. We all are unorganized. We micromanage, we get frustrated, and we do it ourselves. There's always a point in implementing change when we do the things that I'm telling you not to do. But when you do those things, either one or all of them, I want you to catch yourself and back up and retreat and realize you're doing what you're not supposed to be doing. Just realize, have that realization and go, oh, crap, I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. And go back, look at your process and correct whatever you didn't do or could have done better in the setup or the delivery. So just go back a step. So all that to say, now you need to take action. You need to take action. You need to lead your team into battle, so to speak. And as long as you are clear on what you want to achieve and what you expect from them, and you are aware in the back of your mind what not to do, you're all set. You'll create a great potato soup. You just gotta do it. So next week, we'll talk about handling objections, resistance, and reluctance from your team. And that's always a hot topic. So as always, you can post your questions to the LinkedIn group or send them my way via email. You have my email address there. And I'll give you about 30 seconds to type something into the chat box if you have a question right now. But just remember, when it gets really frustrating or when you are trying to create change, think about the potato soup analogy. It just gives you a little bit of a mind shift. So I don't see any questions popping up. I hope that was very clear. And if you do have questions that you don't want to share with anybody, just send me an email. And this is Dr. Young signing off. I will speak to you again next week.